Hey, it's your boy Thomas Keenan coming at you from the Step It Up Academy home podcast studio. That's right. We're home today. Got my man Troy Erickson on today's call on the podcast. He's the owner of Email Paramedic and specializes in copywriting, email deliverability, list management. Dude's been in this game for a minute and has generated over $100 million in sales for his clients. So if you sell anything in your company, if you're looking to getting into email marketing, definitely listen to this episode. Troy's a wealth of knowledge, and I definitely learned some stuff. I took a whole bunch of notes as we recorded this episode. And with that being said, dive in. If you love it, if you think this is awesome, do me a favor, head over to Apple or Spotify, leave a 5-star review, because that's what's going to help this show get in front of other people. And that basically fulfills the mission over here at Step It Up Academy, which is to help others succeed in business. Appreciate you. Have a great day. Hey, what's up? And welcome back to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast. Your host, Thomas Keenan, coming at you. Today, I've got Troy Erickson in the virtual podcast studio with us. And, let me just be transparent here with the listeners. I have usually been against podcast agencies pitching their guests to me. And I've kind of just said, no time for that crap. And finally, my team went in, rebuilt our podcast system, and we started pulling in some more guests, which I think this is awesome, because now I started getting these emails from the podcast agencies, and look, I've used them myself before too. I'm not against them at all. And for those of you who don't know, like as you get involved and you want to go out and market yourself, a lot of times you go out and you hire a podcast booking agency. It's a form of PR. So anyway, this email comes across my desk a week or two ago, and I was like, oh yeah, cool. We actually have bandwidth and we've got systems in place for podcasts now. I should probably read some of these that come through. So one of the very first ones that I read was yours, Troy. And I started going through the information. They put together a really nice, awesome package for you, and gives all your credentials and the things you've done, the companies you own. And I see email marketing. I was like, oh, I got to go talk to this guy. So welcome to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm glad to have you here, and I'm looking forward to diving deep with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Thomas. Let's talk all about email. I'm glad you're excited about it. Some people think it's really boring, but hey, boring makes money.
Yeah, for sure, dude. I'm real big on operations, right? I spent a lot of my career in the operations side of business. I understand enough about marketing, enough about email marketing to be dangerous, but I wouldn't say I'm the expert there by no stretch of the imagination. And I think there's a whole other aspect or element to email marketing that a lot of people don't add enough weight to. And I've seen a lot of companies come out and be really great with the front end. They've got great marketing. They've got a great sales process. They close sales. They collect your money. And then the deliverable, right, the fulfillment aspect of it, that's when the communication goes out the window. So one of the things that I've been able to leverage email marketing for in my own companies, and this is going back to, I've owned several companies over the last 20 years. One of the things that I love to use email marketing for is to continuously and proactively communicate with existing clients. So you come into the system and we're going to still communicate with you at regular intervals and checkups. And some of it's automated and some of it's a manual blast that we're going to send out to our list of paying clients. And I think that's a piece of the puzzle that a lot of people are missing. They're like, oh, well, I don't need email marketing because I don't do that kind of stuff in my business. I'll call bullshit on that. So what are your thoughts? How have you used it in your career? Is it more of a front-end marketing process, or is it more of a follow-up on the back end?
Yeah, so the thing is, the easiest customer that you can possibly acquire is somebody who's already a customer. Mm-hmm. Like, you just leave it at that. The only way that you would ever use email for acquisition would be cold email. That's not really something I do as of the moment. The way that I've kind of used email is literally kind of like you said. One thing is fulfillment. But also, if you do a good job of fulfillment, you also ascend people to the next level, right? So that's email's job. And I think the reason a lot of people don't focus on it is because it's shiny and it's new and it's fun to set up ad campaigns and to get your name out there and do all these different shiny things and TikTok and Reels and all that. And it's those are fun. I've done them before. They work to an extent. But it's not going to work as well as talking to somebody who already knows, likes, and trusts you. So why the heck would you not do it? So ultimately, yeah, just following up with customers, making absolutely sure that they're using what they bought and guiding them on how to use it. Because a lot of people will buy something, they don't know the best way to use it. Because you created it, you know better than anybody. And then using that expertise you have to share with them and kind of guide them to the next step, aka an upsell.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So like going more to the technical side of things, and I want to dive more into that, into the marketing and the mindset of that too, because there's so much stuff we can chew on there. Know, like, and trust. I mean, like that's sales 101 or marketing 101, if you ask me. Getting a client who spends that initial dollar with you to then upsell or send to something else, like that's the key right there. Right, the hardest sale is then busting out that credit card the first time, in my opinion. But put all that aside for a second. Let's go more into the nerd side of this conversation, like the actual operations of it. And here's, and I'll give you a backstory here. So a couple years ago, 7, 8, 9 years ago, maybe, I was in one of my last companies, and we didn't know shit about marketing. Email marketing was a thing that was just this new fandangled thing. I didn't know anything about it, and got involved and started to learn, and was getting coached by people like, hey, you need this in your business, and here's why. Okay, cool. So I bought it, hook, line, and sinker. Cool. I understand that I need it. Now the problem is, at the time, there was something like 400 or so different CRM platforms out there to choose. So the layman, me at the time, was like complete analysis paralysis. There's all these different options out there. Which one of these tools do I choose and give my money to that is going to serve me best in my current position and position in business? And that was a daunting task to go through. So from your perspective, like the email marketing and stuff that you provide for your clients, is this something where you provide the tool to them or you work with their existing tools? Because I know some guys are like, hey, I would never, ever in a million years use that for email marketing, but I'll use this one over here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we come into a client's existing infrastructure. What we do is called email list management. So basically, a lot of people are familiar with copywriting, and it includes copywriting. But the problem with copywriting is you hire a copywriter, they write some emails for you, and they deliver them to you in a Google Doc. And you're still stuck with the same problem. It's like, okay, so I still have to upload these to my ESP so they can be sent. I'm not exactly sure like the
Hold on a
best
second.
strategy.
Let's dumb down one quick second. Tell the audience what an ESP is.
Email service provider. So it's the software where you send your marketing emails from to your audience. So it's kind of like a CRM, kind of one and the same, except some CRMs don't send marketing emails. But anyway, a lot of copywriters won't even upload your emails and send them for you. And I thought that was insane. I thought that was like, why the heck would you not do that? Because like it just doesn't make any sense. Like you make it easy for the client. The easier it is for the person you're selling to, the more likely they are to buy from you. Just side note for the freelancers. But anyway, to get back on track, the copywriters, they're not uploading and sending the emails. They're not strategizing on like how to make more money with the whole like email marketing plan overall. And they sure as heck don't know anything about deliverability, which is a massive problem for a lot of people.
Huge.
Yeah, like if you have a 12% open rate, I can get you to 20. Why would you not go with me, right? Yeah. So email list management, we write and send your daily emails for you. We strategize and build out your automations. We make sure every email hits the primary inbox. So that's like the three things we do. We don't provide a platform, so we don't have our own ESP as of this moment. So we work with your existing one. And one thing I'll add into, a lot of people, they get stuck like choosing the platform and they never make it past that, which is really sad to me. Because one of my friends once told me, he said, switching ESPs or like choosing an ESP is kind of like choosing a gym. It doesn't matter which gym you go to. It's about what you do in the gym. Because I promise you, if you go to a different gym, you're not going to get stronger.
Yeah, you got to show up and do the work. Yeah, imagine that. You actually have to show up and put the work in to get the results. Yeah, I'm with you, dude. So a lot of the coaching that I do in my mastermind Step It Up Academy is more based in the operations side of things. That's where I find where most businesses are lacking. And this is the same conversation I have with my clients over and over again. It's like, hey, I don't care what task management or project management tool you have. You better have one in your company. I don't care if it's ClickUp. I don't care if it's Monday. I don't care if it's Asana. I don't care if you build it in a Google Sheet. I want you to have something, right? Wherever it is to me, like what platform works best for you is irrelevant. It is not my choice. I have the ones that I prefer that I use in my own company, but that's also one of the reasons that there's 800 choices out there for any different software that's available these days. You know, so all right, here's the question though. From all the ESPs/CRMs that are out there, or CRMs that have ESPs built into them, which ones do you prefer to work with, and which ones would you absolutely not touch at all?
I use an ActiveCampaign personally. I signed up for, like obviously I have my own list, my own personal brand, and that's aside from our services. So I use ActiveCampaign for that. I really like it. It's simple. You can build out a lot of automations. You can get really nitty gritty if you want. And that's kind of how I am. I love going in and like designing things and making the customer experience like perfect. So that's what I love. At the same time, though, the last few years, their newer model of it has kind of gotten worse. I hate to say it. Thankfully, I still have the old one. So other good options. I kind of like Entreport. That was kind of fun. Campaign Refinery kind of helps you a little bit with deliverability if you're new at it. So those are a few good ones. If you're doing any kind of e-com, Klaviyo is your best bet just because it integrates really well.
Yeah.
And ones to avoid, I really don't like MailChimp, Infusionsoft. Really anything that you think is complicated and you're not going to use, don't buy it.
Yeah.
Or like in the case of MailChimp, it's free for a reason. Like their IPs suck. So it's like it's harder to make it into the primary inbox on MailChimp, literally.
Yeah, I get it. It's funny. This is going back to the same deal. I started looking for that CRM. I hired a coach, and the coach is like, you need a CRM in your company. And we were so archaic. I owned a service-based business at the time. We installed tracking devices in commercial vehicles, and we hired this coach. And like, dude, I was a great technician. I knew what I was doing in the vehicle. I knew nothing about business at that time. And we hired this coach, and he's like, how do you look up a customer and send them an email if like you have to ask them a question? And I was like, I go into Outlook and I type their name. So this guy almost falls out of his chair when I tell him that. And he basically sent me on the mission. He's like, hey, here's a couple of CRMs that I've used in the past. Go do some research and find one that works best for you. And at the time, I'm a bells and whistles kind of guy. I always have been, right? Like if I'm going to go buy the latest and greatest car, it's going to be the top of the line with all the features. Like it's just how I am. And I carried that same, and I'm not saying that's great, by the way. Okay. Just full transparency. I'm not saying that's a great way to go. I carried that same mentality into the business when I was purchasing software. So I started looking and diving deep and going into all these things. And the only one that really fit the bill at that point in time was Infusionsoft. So I dive in. This is the first software I've ever implemented into a small business my entire career, right? And I choose the hardest motherfucker there is out there, right? So I'll tell you what, though, difficult software, once you actually do learn it and you understand the power of it, you can do some really cool things with it. And the time that I spent in that community learning and implementing it in my own business was really helpful, because what I didn't know at that point was fast forward 5 or 6 years, and I was going to be hired as a COO of an 8-figure company. And when I got there to that company, they ran the entire operation through Infusionsoft. So it was super helpful being familiar with it already when I came in. But yeah, so software wise, a big one right now that you've probably heard of, and I think anyone who's in the small business world has heard of, it's High Level. Everyone seems to be running High Level these days, and myself included. I love their platform, but I think their email tool is trash. It's not where it needs to be at this point.
Yeah, I know a couple of the guys that kind of helped build it, and they're awesome. They built a wonderful tool when it comes to like following up with leads and like contacting them in unique ways that actually stand out, like ringless voicemails and like all these texts and follow-ups. But when it comes to email, yeah, it's like super complicated to even figure out like who's opened recently. And if you can't do that, that's like the fundamentals of email marketing, right? Like you should probably segment your list so you're not emailing people that haven't opened in 2 years, because that's going to really harm your deliverability. It could put you in the spam folder. And they just really haven't done much to like update it. And that would be the no-brainer option if they had a better email platform.
Yeah, I agree. So in a situation like that, with your experience, does it make sense for a client? Let's say a client like me comes to you and says, hey man, I'm running everything on High Level. And you're like, yeah, that's cool. You can run and operate your business out of there because it's very capable. However, when it comes to email marketing, I'm going to put you on this platform. Is that something that you definitely recommend to someone in that scenario?
Yeah, we bring it up to people. We'd say like, hey, just so you know, there's like a lot of limitations that can harm you a few months into the future.
Yeah.
Like if we can't track who's opening, it may not harm you right away, but it is going to create a problem later down the road.
Yeah.
So we'd recommend, switching over here just for email. We can integrate it. So hopefully High Level steps up their game with email, but as of right now, just for like the stress level reduction, I don't want to use High Level for email.
Yeah,
but
that makes sense.
like I said, if it was the only way, that the client could make it work. And it's like, yeah, we can make it work, but just, heed my warning.
Yeah. So what would you do from an integration standpoint? So if you got a client who's like, hey man, I'm not leaving high level because I have all my other stuff built there. I've got my landing pages, I've got text message automations, I've got sales process and follow up built into that thing. I mean, I got my calendar tool, like all that's in there. Like, how would that look like for your team to come in and say, all right, cool, we're actually going to run your stuff over here on Active Campaign or Ontraport. How do you connect the two platforms so they're going to talk to each other? Or are you guys just doing a manual data swap from a CSV file a couple times a month?
I mean, at the beginning, yeah, usually a CSV, but for ongoing, Zapier is obviously a really good option. I love Zapier. It's like the glue of the internet. You
It sure is.
can connect pretty much anything.
Yeah.
And I love playing with it. There's pretty much no problem on Zapier that I can't figure out because I do it for my own business, and I think it's actually pretty fun.
Yeah.
Some people hate Zapier. I love it, but yeah, there's definitely ways where you can move people over automatically, and if they unsubscribe from one, you can unsubscribe from the other, etc.
Yeah, makes sense. So from an email deliverability standpoint, there's been a lot of changes over the last couple of years, right? I think the biggest one, and you kind of alluded to it before, was, for instance, people who are running Gmail as their mail account, right? And I use Gmail for personal, but all of my business accounts are on a paid Gmail account as well. So I have my own domain at the end, and those inboxes come out of the box like from Google with 3 separate tabs. Right, you've got your main tab, you've got your promotions tab, and I think you have one that's labeled social media. Right, and so one of the big problems that we find in the email marketing, the deliverability space, is that those emails that we're sending out for sales and whatnot are landing in the promotions tab inside of a Gmail account. So how do we get around that? What are you guys doing to avoid that? Is it more of is it list hygiene? Is it making sure the customer actually wants to hear and get emails from you? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so we'll start with fundamentals, right? And then we'll get into the super ninja shit after that. But the fundamentals, yeah, of course, you need to be segmenting your list. Don't email people that haven't opened in more than 3 months. One thing you can do too is send out maybe a reply email every week or two, where you just ask people a really simple 1-line question and they reply back, because it's great for engagement. Anytime somebody opens, clicks, replies, favorites, forwards, that's all positive interaction, right? So if you have more positive and less negative, so less people deleting it before they read it, less people marking as spam, less people, never opening, things like that, right? That's going to help. And over time, if you can do a lot of that, maybe months down the road, you could make it in the primary inbox. But when we work with clients, they don't have months to wait. They want results right now. So the biggest thing that I've learned after selling, well, it didn't even take this long, but by now we've sold over $100 million worth of stuff via email for different people. But I would say it took me probably a couple of years into that to try and figure out what the algorithm was looking for. And Google won't tell you. There's a lot of things that when you get an email from somebody who's using Microsoft, for example, or you're on Microsoft, you can inspect the email and they'll tell you a bunch of data about it and what the score was out of 10 for the spam threshold, which is SCL and BCL. And won't get into it, but it's basically a score. But when it comes to Gmail, they won't tell you anything. It's very secretive over there. So what I've found, this is my theory, obviously I have no way to prove this, but this is what seems to me that works over and over again, is it's not about the promotional words and phrases they use. It's not like you can't say, hey, we have a big sale today, 20% off. It's not like you can't say you could make a lot of money. You can say those things. You just have to say them proportionately. So what I mean by that is you can have those things in your email, but based on your domain reputation and all the fundamentals that we talked about a moment ago, if those are really solid, you can get away with more of this stuff. If those are not very good, you can't get away with much. And what you have to do is it's about the percentage of the email that is deemed promotional. So I can say that there's a big sale today, but it has to be under a certain percentage. Like I said, that percentage, nobody knows what it is. Depends how good your domain reputation is. If you're on high, you could probably get away with over half the email being promotion. If your domain reputation sucks, you probably can only do a few percentage of the words can be promotional. So let's say if the email is 1,000 words long, and 200 of them are like kind of considered promotional, and it's tough to tell which ones are.
Yeah.
Like I used to write in BizOp a few years ago, and the word alarm clock was like a promotional trigger that I noticed. I did it manually for a while. I would like take out the words that I thought were causing it, and I kind of learned that way. But what I found was if I could just go to the bottom of the email and add like a brand story, or like if you look at a lot of stock trading lists, for example, a lot of them have disclaimers at the bottom, and they'll tell you like, whatever they need to legally. But a lot of times that content is not promotional because they're not trying to sell you anything in it. So it's like if you add some content that's not promotional, you're reducing that percentage. So along with that, there's a few other things that we test in-house as well, like different combinations, like aliases. So like the thing before the @ sign, so like Troy at leadparamedic.com. So Troy's alias. We've experimented with that. We're doing all kinds of other things to like drive engagement as well, coupled with the percentage keyword strategy. And we can get most businesses out of the promotions tab within like 2 to 3 business days. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's fast too. So I've seen some of those techniques used before that you're talking about, right? I mean, if you do marketing enough, after a while, you start picking up on things and just looking out for them, right? So I've actually seen people send me marketing emails with like, dude, you got this whole novel that is written below the email signature or the PS, like there's a whole novel about you and your company. It's like, what the hell are they sending that for? But now when you explain why, it's like, yeah, they're sending you this because they just added, let's call it, I don't know, they added 300 words of copy to the email that was sent that no one's going to read, but that's going to help them actually drop a little bit more promotional shit into the email so it won't trigger the promotion tabs in, let's say, Gmail, and it'll go into your main inbox. Like that's just brilliant.
Yeah, anybody you see doing that most likely learned it from me. Now, there's a couple other things you can, like I went viral in 2021 because I was running ads that were like literally guaranteed out of the promotions tab, and all these marketers who read all the articles on Google about how it's impossible. They're like, oh, you can't do that. And there was created a lot of controversy, which is great if you're trying to get some publicity. So yeah, a lot of the people we've probably done something similar for before, or we also have like a certification program. So a lot of our students kind of learn it, but usually we're able to get it like somewhat short and concise because we have a lot of data on like what's working, what's not working, and like a bunch of other things that we try to, like I mentioned earlier. But yeah, it works, but it's also a matter of like you still want your email to look clean and professional. So
right. So here's some stuff that I've heard a lot of talk about too, and I want your professional opinion on it. There's a lot to be said with people who are sending like emails that look good. They got some HTML in there, they got some colored click buttons, and they've got some images and just emails that look good to the eye versus a plain Jane just text email. So when do you use one or the other? And I mean, are you even doing HTML style emails at this point, or are they just not worth the effort?
Yeah, it depends what you're selling. So I never use, like, a lot of people misinterpret that and they call it plain text. Plain text is like you can't even have a link in the email. You have to like type out the whole hyperlink and somebody has to like copy it and but like pretty much everything that you want to send these days is HTML. Like might as well, right? It makes it 10 times easier for people to click a link. But really, for like my industry, like coaching, consulting, the only time you need an image is when you have to like show proof, right? So if you're like, hey, so and so got this result, and you want to throw in a screenshot, put the screenshot in there. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense to have like, it doesn't make any sense for me to use Klaviyo and like have a big image at the top and like a branded logo, and like people, they know you're trying to sell them something when you do that. And it's like, yeah, people on my list, they know sometimes I try to sell them stuff too, but for the most part, I'm just telling stories. Like literally just taking, and like think about it this way, a podcast, but instead of video and audio, it's just written, right? And I tell a lot of stories. Like the best email that I ever wrote that got the highest engagement was about the day my grandfather died and the lessons that I learned from. It has nothing to do with business. There was another time I wrote an email about the exact offer we just talked about. I found these 2 kids in Europe who like literally copied my sales letter word for word and like read it into a video. And I decided to do something kind of fun. I booked a call with them. I took the call and recorded it. They had no idea it was me, even though my face was on there. And then at the end, I told them who they were talking to, and they were like, So that was a pretty good piece of content that I sent out. And like the best piece is I'm not even selling anything. I'm just entertaining people. And those people they don't get that.
Yeah.
And that's why their emails suck. They're like, hello, would you like to buy this today? It's 20% off. And they don't realize that like people these days go crazy for like social media content. And then when it comes to email, they like pretend they have to be super corporate and polished. And people hate that.
Yeah.
So in your industry, if people hate corporate and polished, don't do it. If people love corporate and polished and they need to have big fancy images and logos, then do it. But at the end of the day, even people wearing suits, they're humans inside and they like entertainment.
It's so true. When I started learning a lot about social media and leveraging social media for marketing purposes, it was explained to me similar to what you're alluding to here in the email. And I want to kind of concur, or maybe you don't agree with me here, is to pretty much leverage the 80-20 rule when it comes to your posting schedule, right? So it's like send out a ton of value and a ton of stuff to either educate or entertain your audience or your list, right? And so if we use the 80-20 rule, we're going to send out 4 social media posts to educate or entertain, or 4 emails to educate, entertain. And that 5th one, we're going to come in there and say, hey, come buy my shit. And the way that I've learned it is you don't always have to be direct with the, hey, come buy my shit. You can, like you said, you can tell a story about someone who did buy your stuff and the result that they achieved by buying your stuff. Hey, if you're interested in this, reply to the email. It doesn't always have to be click this button and buy my shit right now, from what I've seen. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, 80-20 is roughly correct. There's no like exact, I'm not going to tell you, it's 72-28, but
come on, man, we're going to hold you to that. What the fuck, dude?
It's just like I tell stories, and if I like it's really funny. A lot of people plan out content like weeks in advance, and I'm like, why are you wasting your time doing that? Like, first of all, you should be worried about today. And then after, today and this week, you're going to know more about your audience than you did last week. And then you can use that information to better sell things. So what I'm doing all the time is I'm just like writing whatever comes to my head, and I'm telling stories. And if I'm like, this story kind of fits in with the product that I want to sell today, then I'll sell it. But also, like, if I'm like, all right, well, I have something new that I want to sell. Okay, maybe I could do that next week. So yeah, I'll tell some stories that are kind of related to that. Maybe a reply email to kind of like gauge how excited people are about it. And then I'll take, if I need to take 5 days in a row to launch something and sell it, yeah, that's perfect. So there's not an exact number. It's just kind of like I'm always trying to get a pulse check on the list and like see how they're doing and what they're responding to.
Yeah, got it. So let's still stay here in email marketing, but shift gears a little bit too, because if you're going to be writing content on a weekly basis, to me, that's more of a broadcast style email that you're sending out to the list, right? What's the thought process? And are you in your company, are you guys helping your clients build out long-term nurture sequences as well? If someone comes in through their funnel and doesn't buy, they get dropped into this drip sequence that, sends them an email for the next 600 years. Like, what's that look like? Are you guys doing that kind of stuff? And what's your thought on it?
Same concepts, right? So like if I'm writing a sequence, whether somebody opts in or they haven't bought yet, or whether they bought and I'm trying to upsell them something, like I don't know what works. Like I think I'm pretty smart and I kind of know like in general what works with email, but I'm never going to assume that I know. So why don't I just like when I start, take the automation that's there and just make it as short as I can. So like, hey, the first email is a welcome email. Second email is like my story. The third email is like how to use the product. Fourth email is like FAQs. And then the 5th one's like testimonials. So that's just an example.
Yeah.
Why write more than 5 if I don't know that it works? So like after those 5, they get put in the daily broadcast pool of people. And then at that point, I'm just writing emails to them. And whichever angle works best, that's going to be email number 6.
Yeah.
And then I'll go write more emails, and then eventually I'll find number 7, and you just like build it as you go.
Got it. So you're doing the work daily, and the ones that actually get traction and work start getting added to that long-term nurture.
Yeah, it's like a musician, right? Like they're only going to play their most popular hits at a concert. So it's like they're not going to just like play. They're not just be like, oh, let me just put together 10 songs and just whatever. They're looking back through all their previous songs and they're picking out the best ones and they're putting them in the concert. So because they know for a fact that people will enjoy them more.
Yeah.
So same thing. Like if you know for a fact it makes more sales, you should probably put it in sequence. But you don't know that until you've tested the email.
Yep, got it. So talk to me a little bit about your different companies and the different offerings. So I know you got, from what I see, it looks like 2 or 3 different companies that you're running right now.
Yeah, some of them are just domains that are under the same company, but the main one is, email paramedic. That's our done for you service. We write, send all your emails for you, build automations, manage deliverability. We also have a certification program where we train people in case they don't need done for you, or maybe they're a freelancer and they kind of want to learn what we do.
Sure.
So that's really all I do in my main business.
Yeah.
As far as other projects, I have mailgenius.com. So that is one of the most favorited email spam testers on the internet. So you just go to mailgenius.com. It gives you this email address. All you do is you send an email to that email address and click the button, and it tells you exactly what's wrong with your email and how to fix it. Other sites, copywriting.org is just a place for copywriters to connect. We basically interviewed all the best people in the industry, put them on the homepage, and you can literally just go read all their interviews and you can get interviewed yourself. And a lot of people share it, and it went super viral right at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022 with that strategy. So it was a pretty fun, passion project. I don't really know what I want to do with that yet, but those are the main things that we have going on.
Yeah. All right. So I got to be the guy who asked you the question. I'm sure everyone on the planet has asked you over the last year, but with copywriting and all this stuff that you're writing email wise for your clients and whatnot, how has AI and ChatGPT and other things such as Jasper and the 800 other versions of that crap they got out there now, how has that impacted what you're doing from your client? And why should a client stick with you versus going and using AI themselves?
So 2 ways to answer. Number one, for anybody who's like, oh yeah, I could just use AI, and just be like, would you really? Are you actually going to go take the time to learn how to use it yourself? That's the first
question. Not as easy as everyone thinks.
Yeah, they think that you just sign in and then all your emails are written and uploaded and sent and delivering perfectly. But to answer the question on a more technical basis, AI has really just separated the pretenders from the players, right? Because if I tell AI to write an email selling product X, it's going to write something that sounds really cheesy and tacky. But if I know how to talk to it and how to prompt it and teach it to think like I do, it's not going to get exactly on where I'm thinking about myself, right? Because it's really hard for it to learn about specific people unless they're famous. So you really have to take a long time, and there's a lot of learning that goes into teaching it to think somewhat closely to you.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, they don't even make it that far, right? So it's if AI is writing better than you, you shouldn't have been a copywriter in the first place, right? Yeah. Now, if you know how to prompt it, it probably means you have a decent understanding of copywriting and you can kind of use it to assist you. But once you upload it to the ESP, the email is written, what's the strategy? How are you building automations? How are you checking and making sure that all the principles and things you're trying to accomplish are covered in the email that AI wrote? And then lastly, deliverability, right? I'm working on some AI tools right now and trying to develop one to make deliverability a lot easier. But at the present time, ChatGPT, it doesn't know how to do all the things that we do. It assists us in writing emails faster. But that's kind of the take. Yes.
Yeah. I agree with you. Listen, like anyone else, I've gone back in there and played with it a lot. And it definitely has its strengths and its use cases. I find it is often good to give you that initial idea or the structure. So if you have an idea oh, hey, write me up an email, such and such words long, this is the target market, boom. And it at least gives you some of the structure. It's oh, you know what? I like this part of it, but this over here is garbage. Let me grab this and give it a prompt and say, expand on this and add X, Y, and Z to it. But again, until you go in there and you spend countless hours playing with the AI tool and really getting a good understanding of what prompts cause it to take which actions to get you the results that you truly want, it's just a tool, right? And oftentimes in life and in business, the tool that we use is only as good as the user who is operating the tool.
As people like to say, garbage in, garbage out. That phrase has been popularized over the past year.
It's true. Very true. So let's talk about your done for you service a little bit, right? Because I'm sure there's people who are going to listen to this who are like, bro, I need that shit now. What does it look like? Who's the ideal client for you? Is there a specific industry? Is there a specific gross revenue amount for the client?
I mean, typically, if you have a list of opt-ins or buyers, or as long as they're not like cold email people, usually like 5 to 10,000 is the bare minimum list size that we work with. And as far as the type of clients, if you sell anything high ticket, it's gonna crush, right? Because like we're not cheap, but at the same time, if you're over here selling like $30 water bottles on your Shopify store, like I got to be honest with you, I'm not really interested in that.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the people who are like, hey, I have this high ticket offer that's crushing it and changing lives for people. And obviously the margins on that are fantastic. So like we're really going to thrive together. But if it's like low ticket or you have a small list or like the people don't know who you are, that's like, don't waste your time.
Got it. So what does it look like? I'm not looking for exact numbers because I'm sure it's different between every one of your clients. But what does it look like for you, and how do you structure, what your fee is to do the work? Are you taking a percentage of the sales? Are you taking a monthly fee up front or a combination of the two? What does that look like?
Yeah, the first month we have a monthly fee and a setup fee, and then thereafter, obviously, it's just a monthly fee. But yeah, we only want to work with people who have skin in the game, right? Because like we get hit up literally every single day. Somebody is like, "Oh, hey, bro, I have an idea. Can we just like you send the emails and we split the profits?" And it's just a way for me to like weed out the people who aren't serious. So yeah, like are there some people who work on rev share? Yeah, but it's like there's a reason for that because they need to. Otherwise, I don't have any clients.
Yeah. Yeah, they may not have proven themselves in the industry either. So it's like, hey, gamble on me, and I'll come in here and work for free until this thing works. And if it doesn't, well, then it's not.
That's the thing. Yeah, it's like when you hire us, you're not gambling. It's like you have $100 million worth of sales data like backing you up. So that's why we charge a lot.
Yeah. What's the ideal product or service that you guys like to sell that you see the best results with?
Really just anything like coaching, consulting, business, really B2B. Generally, it's anything that's high ticket. I know it's not high ticket's not necessarily an industry, but it's like high ticket generally tends to be some form of education or some like higher level business program. And it's like if it's in that category, like that's our favorite.
So let's give some real numbers here to the listeners. What do you consider high ticket?
I mean, so at the end of the day, like a lot of people who are charging less than $1,000, this is just a general business lesson. You could literally triple your prices and you would not see much of a decrease in conversion rate, especially if your offer is sold on the phone. You could literally, increase your price, double your price, triple your price, whatever. And the amount of people saying yes will not go down that much. Like I promise. It's like when I first started, we were selling the deliverability component of what we do by itself for $750. Today, we charge $9,000 for that. We still sell a lot of it. And guess what? Even if I sold 10 times less, I would still be making more money.
Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah, man, I love it. All right, so here's the famous podcast question. If someone's listening today, they want to contact you and learn more about how you could possibly help them up their email marketing and sell some cool shit online, like where's the best place for them to reach out and contact you?
Yeah, I'll give you the link to drop about this specific offer because most of the time I just drive people to faqemail.com, which is where you go there and you get a document that answers all the frequently asked questions I get about email. So there's that, but more specifically in relating to this offer, I will send you the link for the description.
Yeah, we'll send that over and we'll drop it into the show notes, and people who are interested, they can go there and check it out and grab it and maybe do some business with you.
Sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. It's awesome. I appreciate you coming on here and dropping up some real nerd stuff because honestly, this is the information that a lot of people need to hear. And there's so many people who aren't willing to talk about it because they are on their high horse or just, it's like, oh, you got to pay me before you get that kind of info. So thanks for being open and sharing your knowledge.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you for tuning in to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast. Make sure you head over to stepitupentrepreneur.com and make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast.